Good evening and welcome to our September 3rd, 2025 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. Paper copies of the agenda are available here in the room. Back there, I believe, I'm not sure if there's coffee, but there might be if you want some, next to the paper packet. And then the full agenda with all materials is available online as always. Reviewing our full agenda, first we will consider our consent agenda. There are 3 items on that today, after which we will have general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing at any time. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission, and we reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and residence for our meeting minutes and address your comments to the commission. We will hear from people who are here in person first, then we'll look to our Zoom meeting attendees to ask if anybody there would like to make public comment. Please use the raise your hand function if you're online and you do wish to provide public comment virtually when the time comes. Please also know that comments received by the commission during our meeting do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comments on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment concludes, we'll move on to our regular business agenda for tonight, which there are no items on. And so that means we'll just move forward towards appointments and miscellaneous items from administration and commissioners. Let's see, I threw myself off. We don't have action items, so there won't be any public comment for that. So that will conclude our agenda for this evening. And a recording of this meeting will be available later on the county's YouTube page and on our website. All right, commissioners, we've got a few consent agenda items. Does anybody have anything they wish to pull off or ask any further questions about? Okay, seeing none, is anybody in the public here to pull anything off of the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, no virtual hands, Sarah. Okay, I'll bring that back to the commission and accept a motion.
I move to approve consent agenda items 1.1 through 1.3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. And with that, we will move right into our general public comment. We did provide a sign-up sheet tonight, so you can go ahead and make your public comment first, introducing yourself. Whoever comes up first, just hit the button on that microphone so that you see the light turn green, and then you can just leave it on. You can speak first and then sign in afterwards so the next person can start speaking. Whoever would like to kick us off can come on up.
Okay. Okay, green light. That was a smooth entrance. Hello, my name is Joe Cassad, and I'm with Justice Matters. I want to thank this commission for supporting the A Place for Everyone plan to end chronic homelessness. As you know, the goal of establishing a tenant's right to counsel is built into the A Place for Everyone plan. There is a reason why it was included in the plan, because it helps to reduce homelessness. A homeless person costs the county a lot more time and trouble and money than simply ensuring that the tenant's rights are represented. I want to say to landlords, we respect your rights also. This plan doesn't give an advantage to the tenants. It simply levels the playing field and allows the legal system to function as it was intended. with representation on both sides of such an important question as the precipice of homelessness. I urge you to stay true to the goals of the A Place for Everyone plan and put the tenants' rights to counsel on the agenda for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Cassandra Barrett. I rent at 1414 Connecticut Street in Lawrence. And I was going to tell you a story about how I spent 3 months living in a house with raw sewage flooding my bathroom, such that I couldn't bathe myself, use the toilet, wash my clothes, or do my dishes in my own home. I feared a retaliatory eviction with every single maintenance request that I placed. Tenants have counterclaims. Our stories are rarely heard in court without an attorney, and it seems like I'm not going to get to tell that story tonight either because I feel it is important to address some comments from the work session directly. Genuinely curious, what is the traditional route to get this passed, especially given that the commission has already voted to pass this as a part of A Place for Everyone? We have met with staff and stakeholders multiple times in work groups as Lawrence tenants for over several years now. If we as tenants were not organizing, I have the strong suspicion that this would never get off the ground. We are so happy to work with staff, but we really had to spend a lot of time arguing for this right that we know how valuable it is as opposed to mediation. You will notice that you have heard 0 tenants ask for mediation. We have spent plenty of time researching this, talking about this publicly in town halls, speaking on the record over and over, as Commissioner Reed noted. And it is not our fault if folks who committed to passing this have not taken the time to listen to that ample publicly available information until we have served it on a platter here this evening. There is so much data published nationally and collected locally by amazing legal services partners to show that so many, if not most, tenants have counterclaims, even if the homeowners on the commission have a hard time believing that. The county has previously pooled money out of the general fund to do something outside of the budget cycle. Fund this program for 1 year out of the general fund and then put it on the regular budget cycle. Tenants are actively being evicted while we wait on this. Kids, elders, sick people. It is incredibly unfair that homeowners be the ones that decide on delaying this. You decide through these delays that it's okay for people to become homeless, to lose their jobs, to lose their kids, to foster care while they wait for you to take action on something that you have already committed to. We worked incredibly hard on this resolution. I am one of those researchers that Vince discussed. I worked very hard to earn my PhD, as my fellow tenants worked very hard on their JDs, journalism degrees, Masters of Fine Arts. I would hope that the commission would be glad to receive written language by their constituents who have brought their own expertise to bear, who have had it reviewed by multiple local lawyers who volunteered their expertise as well, and are eager to collaborate and see commitments become reality. Put tenant right to counsel on the agenda for October 1st and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will I get a warning when my time is up? Or, gotcha, thank you. My name is Merrill Sake. I live at 950 Monterey Way, apartment C1, 66049. 3 years ago, I had the privilege of renting a gorgeous half a duplex apartment in Old West Lawrence from a mom and pop landlord who rented out a total of 4 units in that neighborhood. I applied for rental assistance, which required the landlord's participation. And upon informing my landlord of my intentions, she had an immediate response that was a question filled with urgency and alarm. And that was, what are you going to do when your lease ends August 1st? And after I hung up the phone, I processed that the alarm and concern in her voice validly reflected the reality that I had lost my home, that my lease was not going to be renewed on August 1st. And my attempts to speak with her and advocate for myself after that were unsuccessful. So I set up a landlord-tenant mediation with a local program in Lawrence through the called Building Peace. My landlord agreed to that. We met with 2 mediators. I said that I was being discriminated against based on my source of income, which had recently been made illegal by legislation passed by the city of Lawrence. My landlord said that she had a family member who had become gravely ill to the point where she could no longer function as a landlord and no longer rent out her units. That turned out to be a lie. She continued renting. Thank you. She continued renting out her apartments and fully functioning as a landlord. I watched her show prospective tenants her units after that. The outcome of the mediation was that what I said was not believed and not accepted to be true by the mediators. What my landlord said was accepted to be true and believed by the mediators. If I would have had legal counsel, I think I would have had a greater chance to not lose my home and for justice and accountability to be implemented regarding my landlord breaking the law and lying about it. Please put tenant right to counsel on the agenda and please vote yes for it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bertie Albrecht, 938 East 19th Street. I am a direct service advocate at Lawrence Community Shelter, and I'm a steward of the Lawrence Community Workers Shelter Union of Local 6400 CWA. We as a union have elected unanimously to show our support for tenants' right to counsel, and I will be reading a letter that the union, our local union, crafted. Dear Douglas County Board of County Commissioners, this letter is written on behalf of the Lawrence Community Shelter Workers Union with CWA Local 6400 to express our strong support in establishing a tenant right to counsel in Douglas County. Over 400 evictions are filed in our district court every year, and if this right is passed, it will positively affect thousands of Douglas County households in the coming years. There are many reasons why establishing a tenant right to counsel is the right thing to do. Legal representation increases the likelihood of tenants remaining in their homes. Balancing power in eviction proceedings ensures fair treatment for tenants. Sustained funding preserves the success of tenant legal aid programs in our community. And regulating the eviction process promotes healthier resolutions to tenant-landlord disputes. Evictions cause unnecessary homelessness, trauma, and unsafe situations in working families' lives. And we believe that we have a moral responsibility to address the eviction crisis in our community, and our organization believes that this is one way it can be accomplished. Please acknowledge that housing is a human right and establish a tenant right to counsel in Douglas County. Thank you. I also have some copies of this letter if you will indulge me in passing them out.
You can provide it to staff and they'll make sure it becomes a part of the packet.
Hello, my name's Nick Simpson. I'm a renter in Douglas County, Lawrence. I'm at 2001 West 6th Street, apartment G12, 66044. Obviously, I'm here to support tenant right to counsel, and I hope you guys put it on an agenda, and when you do, to vote yes. I wanted to tell you a little bit about when I got close to being evicted. I didn't actually, because I had some support with my family, but the backstory here was I had an apartment, not the one I'm at, but it was 3 of us, and people come in, come go. We switched roommates, but it was all working until one of my roommates actually got deported, and I was working 30 hours a week. I wanted to work more, but I wasn't able to with the hours I was receiving. And it was very difficult with my wage and with my coworkers or with my roommate's wage to cover the bills. And so we fell behind, and then we were always just a little bit behind. We never quite fully caught up. So we were getting $5 fees every single day, $25 every month. And we tried to work it out with the landlord, but over time, we got hit with this eviction notice because both of the roommates stopped paying rent. And so it was just me. And if I had some help, but if I had been in a typical, person's case, like everyone else that we've been talking about, I wouldn't have known my rights. I didn't know about counterclaims. We had a period where we had 2 weeks with no air conditioning during a heat wave. I know that there's ways to reduce the fees based on habitability and all sorts of things like that. And I wanted to get off the lease, do like a roommate change because, I had paid my portion and I didn't, again, also with my rights, I didn't understand how joint leases worked. It wasn't explained to me, but, ultimately that ended up working out. But if it had gone through the eviction process, which we had the notice and everything, the lawyer would have been able to help me with a counterclaim on air conditioning and habitability, and maybe we could have gone through some sort of lawyer style mediation to get me off the lease because they wouldn't let me off of it. So that's just what I want to talk about today, was that I wasn't in the mental health, like the mental home space to learn about all these things when I was going through the process. I had 3 days to get like $1,800. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zach, and my zip code is 66044. I work at the Sexual Trauma and Abuse Care Center serving Douglas, Franklin, and Jefferson County, and I'm the Prevention Education Specialist. When I started my job, I was given the task of chairing the Sexual Assault Prevention Work Group with the Live Well Douglas County. Upon my start, I was handed A Place for Everyone, the Community Health Improvement Plan, and most importantly, the Tenant Experience Survey. Documents I hope that you all are familiar with, as this is not a new topic. Preventing sexual violence and access to affordable, stable, and safe housing are impossible to not talk about together. Homelessness is a leading risk factor for sexual violence. Access to housing for survivors is a crisis response. The ability to rehome a family after incidents of intimate partner violence is a necessity. Black, Brown, Indigenous, and trans survivors are at an even higher risk of this experience at the compounded effects of colonialism and capitalism. We cannot talk about any rape, sexual assault, or stalking without naming our lack of support as a core barrier, our lack of housing support as a core barrier. A quick read through these documents that Lawrence Tenants presented and I just mentioned will show you that where our tenants, our health department, frontline workers, city commission, and many more have stated are conditions that need to be addressed. The CHIP says that our anti-poverty goal is to improve the well-being of families in Douglas County by intentionally and simultaneously working to support children and adults in their lives together. The behavioral health goal in CHIP states that they aim to create an integrated system of behavioral health care that serves a whole person their whole life until they can realize their full potential. The first objective stated under this goal is to promote the integration of housing and behavioral health services to achieve functional zero chronically homeless individuals and households by 2029. And within the CHIP lies the place for everyone that people have talked about today. A plan adopted by many city and county stakeholders, and it says by 2028, we will create a system that achieves the functional zero through policy, system, and environmental changes, resulting in all Douglas County residents having access to the fundamental human right of safe, accessible, attainable, and affordable housing in which homelessness is a rare and brief occurrence. Earlier this year, the Sexual Violence Prevention Work Group presented the Tenant Experience Survey to City Commission. Over 1,000 Douglas County residents shared their experiences as it relates to being a tenant in our county. And if you had read it, I urge you to do so. It sheds light on the conditions that our tenants experience daily that are seemingly up for debate for protection today. Some quick highlights are as follows. 45% of residents reported feeling unsafe in their rental home at some given time. Residents from 66044 are more likely to feel unsafe in their current living arrangement, feel threatened by their landlord or management, or fear of being wrongfully cited by law enforcement. During the presentation, city commissioners expressed their own interest in the right to counsel, a tenant bill of rights, and expanding more into renter inspection programs. Right to counsel is being done in numerous states across,
Zach,
and I urge you to support right to counsel on October 1.
thank you.
Christina McKenna from 66046. And this issue is about fairness, equality, and basic human decency. We all have a need for security. I have lived 42 years without having any housing security in my life. As a child, it was always a fear my mother held over my head that we could be taken away for any reason whatsoever. It's unfair to children, it's unfair to the adults, and no one has the appropriate mental health to handle something like that. And I was in a domestic violence situation myself as an adult. I had to leave, and the state, because I was in Missouri, would not allow me to keep my children with me because I was unhoused. We like to say that the system is there to protect the people, but instead it seems to continue to create the same instances we say we're trying to prevent. And that is not right, equal, fair, or a good space for anybody to live in. I make a good amount of money. It doesn't mean I feel safe. Everybody deserves the right to have counsel. We don't throw kids into trig in the first year of math without teaching them and leading them into something. Counsel is there to help them know the rights they have, since we do not have classes that we have to regularly take to teach us what our rights are in our country. We're supposed to be able to just know our rights, I guess, through osmosis. We don't teach people, we expect them to sink or swim without giving them help. Counsel in this situation is just there to help them understand all the paths they have, all the obstacles in their way, show them what is preventing proper recourse and discourse. Mediation, I've seen not work in many instances. Instead, having someone there by your side who actually cares, guiding you through, showing you the legal process, that honestly is invaluable. Thank you.
It's on. Okay. Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Mariel Ferreiro, resident here at Lawrence 66046. I am coming you to today in support of placing the tenant right to counsel on the October 1st agenda and moving forward with a vote. As you heard in the work session, through the National Coalition for Civic Right to Counsel, there's a resource that my organization, The Case Made, created talking about right to counsel and racial equity. I'm also one of the contributors to A Place for Everyone. I also sit on city boards around affordable housing, and I piloted the landlord-tenant mediation program in Lawrence Douglas County. So I have extensive experience around this particular subject matter and previous experience when I was a tenant. I think the conversation that we are looking at is not one of what services we pick and choose, but how many tools can we offer our community so we can move to a future of housing abundance, not housing instability or insecurity, and having equitable practices such as tenant right to counsel begins not only providing a culture shift and a power dynamic shift that right now is incredibly inequitable and imbalanced between landlords and tenants,
but also provides some accountability and security to that idea of sustainable housing abundance. As I said, working with communities across the country and in partnership with the National Coalition, we listen to communities the size of Lawrence Douglas County, larger and even smaller, to hear about the impact. And what I can say is having tangible, accountable, and codified measures to provide equitable practices like tenant right to counsel are imperative in talking about accessibility and affordability in housing. So I absolutely urge you, from the side on a national level of expertise and someone who is incredibly committed to affordable housing on the local level, to review this ordinance, to know that the people who wrote this, the authors of this particular document, know what they're talking about, are experts. I also have been a contributor to many ordinances in the community that have passed, and this group is willing to work with those folks and work with the county. So I urge you to move forward with this October 1 at the soonest. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here? Okay.
Hello, my name is Charles Epp. I'm a resident along with my wife of Douglas County, 66046. We live in the city over there. We're not renters. We've lived in our house since 1996. What I want to say, I want to make 2 points that are in response to what I found very useful questions in the work session just before this this meeting. One of those questions is or was, what percentage of eviction filings are effectively illegal? And of course, that's a broad term. I should note, I suppose for purposes of information, I'm a professor in the School of Public Affairs and Administration up at KU. One of my areas of expertise is law and public policy. I'm saying that just for identification purposes. I'm not speaking on behalf of the university or in that official capacity. But I've done research on this. And the answer is, that I want to give on the question of what percentage are effectively illegal comes from a great study that was done using Kansas City data. It was a study that was a thesis done at Harvard University. And what that study found was that before right to counsel was adopted in Kansas City, in contested eviction cases, 0.2% of those cases were decided in favor of the tenant. After adoption of right to counsel for tenants in eviction cases, 82% of those contested cases were decided in favor of the tenant. That is, they remained in their residence at least for a period of time. This isn't a perfect analogy to illegality, but the simple message of that is that approximately 80% of the eviction actions in Kansas City before right to counsel were effectively legally deficient, effectively illegal. A second question I want to address is, why use right to counsel to address upstream issues like code violations? That's a really good question, a fair question. And the best analogy that I can offer for that is the evidence that we have on the effect of right to counsel in criminal cases. And it's very clear from early studies on that, I'll be very, very quick, that right to counsel in criminal cases contributed materially, substantially, and in profoundly important ways to the professionalization of the police investigation process and the criminal prosecution process. Without some check at the end point of that process, there's not a lot of incentive, even though there are other mechanisms for professionalizing investigations and prosecution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jasmine Bates. I'm a resident of Lawrence at 1506 Rhode Island Street. and I'm here to add myself to the tally in favor of tenant right to counsel. I used to work as an AmeriCorps member for the county with the Housing Stabilization Collaborative, so that's where most of my one-on-one experience with this comes from. And through that, I've just seen how much tenants don't understand the eviction process. It's kind of convoluted for somebody who doesn't spend time in a courtroom, and maybe especially people who are being evicted potentially illegally. Maybe they don't speak English as a first language. Maybe they just aren't used to reading lots of legal paperwork. It's very confusing. You get a lot of different things, and it's not really clear what you're supposed to do. And often they just get a notice and they think they have to leave. And we really need legal representation available that people are notified about, that they know they can get, so that they do go to court and they go through the process and they find out whether or not they indeed do have to be evicted. Because right now what we have is we are just expecting them to become experts in the eviction process in a matter of weeks while they're going through being evicted, and potentially, facing a really real threat of homelessness depending on, their personal situation. And I just know that we can do better than that. I really like living in Lawrence. I really like living in Douglas County because we have so many amazing supports and so many amazing programs, and we have really great representation on the local level. And you've already shown that you support initiatives like this through other things that you voted on. And this one is data supported. We have data to support it. It might be a little controversial, but we know that it can work. And as Cass mentioned in her comments right at the start, you have willing collaborators in this room who want to work with staff, want to work with you, and want to get this passed and make sure that it's effective. We don't want this to be something that is just an expensive, underutilized program. We want it to be something that ultimately is going to save us money. Because if there is a bunch of fees that have stacked up that a tenant is supposed to pay, but they go to eviction court and they find out, oh, I didn't actually have to pay all those fees, we're getting some of those forgiven, and then they request rent assistance to cover back rent, we're not paying these bogus fees that didn't need to be there in the first place. That was a little convoluted, but basically you have collaborators, this is data supported, and what we're doing right now just isn't up to the standards that we set in our community. So I hope you'll put it on the agenda and vote yes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Samia. I'm a renter in Lawrence, 66044. I wanted to say that I have been a volunteer at the Legal Self-Help Office at the Douglas County Courthouse, which is currently positioned as sort of the stopgap measure for folks that are facing eviction or any other need for self-representing themselves in court. And I wanted to speak from that point of view because in truth, the volunteers are also not attorneys. We aren't able to give legal advice, and we aren't experts on the process of eviction. So truly the role that we play is at most pointing them to where the legal forms are, but not truly explaining this is the one that's specific to your case, because that ends up being legal advice. So the county has already attempted to fill this need of people needing some sort of assistance when they go to court. But the fact that it is not coming from true counsel means that it isn't actually affecting the problem that we are all here discussing of how eviction cases generally do not get litigated in necessarily a fair way because people are not experts in eviction before they face that process. So I wanted to speak to the fact that the measures that we currently have in Douglas County are not quite sufficient, and I hope that you vote to put right to counsel on the agenda and ideally work with some of the other folks in this room to make it a reality. Thank you.
James Dunn, 936 Kentucky Street. My heart, I'm a private sector landlord, and I've heard a lot of these cases, and I feel for a lot of the people here that have spoken today. I wanted to comment on one thing that Gene Dorsey mentioned in the earlier presentation, because I've had people come to me before that have been evicted, and many times they'll come to me and they say, I already have my satisfaction of judgment. So I've already taken care of my business. Now I want to move forward. And that opportunity is always available for people when after they've been through an eviction process would be to go get a satisfaction of judgment. That's one thing. I also wanted to mention there's housing and credit counseling. That was an agency that I've used many times that available for tenants, and I've referred that to tenants before when they're having some problems to go to housing and credit counseling, an agency, a local agency that's available for people. And I participated, I know one person mentioned mediation. I participated in mediation processes before. The Human Relations Department, they offered that at one time to the city of Lawrence. I participated before, and it was very helpful at that point, and people were able to stay in their housing through that process. And that worked out pretty good. One thing that I feel like has not been mentioned here, a couple of things. One thing that hasn't been talked about that is becoming kind of an issue for landlords are squatters. Boarders and lodgers and squatters. Would that population be served by this kind of an ordinance? Would they be now legal counsel and they're actually squatters? And sometimes my own attorney said, well, we don't even know who to evict because they're squatting in someone's house. They're squatting in the property, so they don't even know who to really, how to serve. But the police in Lawrence, they've been reluctant to, evict people, move people out that are squatters. And of course, we've got the problem of boarders and lodgers. And I personally had situations where a tenant will let someone in their apartment and they'll lock out the tenant. So now I am in the position of having to evict somebody you don't know who's in the property. So I've had many problems like that over the years, different things like that a few times over the years. And of course, another issue that many tenants will come to me and they say they want me to do something about the disruptive behaviors of the neighbors. And that has generated a lot of problems. And having a very slow eviction process, neighbors are being disrupted. They don't understand the eviction process and how difficult it is to really get people out that are being disruptive every night when they may be professional people and working people every day, and they have to get their rest and they have to have their own life. But then there's this whole disruptive thing going on. So anyway, before this ordinance is passed, I hope some of these other issues are considered. Another factor that I just thought of is this business of senior living. We have a number of senior properties here. If somebody has a problem with that property, is this ordinance going to impact people that are living in those kind of
James,
properties?
That's your time.
As my time?
Yep, thank you. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Evan Norkey. I live in Lawrence, 66044. I just want to say there is no substitute for having a lawyer when you're being evicted. There are other resources that people use sometimes, but they are stopgaps and they do not meet the need. When people are going through an eviction, it is a complicated legal process, and the only person who can legally provide them with guidance is a lawyer. And we do not have the resources in our community right now without a new program and without more funding and resources to meet that need. I saw that firsthand when I was a case manager at the Burt Nash Center. I had a lot of clients facing eviction, and I could never find a lawyer for them. I could find other resources that could help them, but I could never get them in contact with a lawyer because the legal aid organizations near here, try as hard as they will, just don't have the resources to meet the need. As a case manager, I could only help so much because I couldn't advocate for my clients in court. You've heard other people talk today about other resources that don't quite meet the need. For me, I saw this and I decided to go to law school about it. I want to be one of the attorneys who is helping protect people from eviction, but you need more people to do it. You need more resources. You need to build a program that will ensure that every single tenant is protected in the event of an eviction. They might still end up getting evicted, but the point of a lawyer there is to protect people's rights. and only council can do that. If you do not guarantee tenants the right to counsel, tenants' rights will be violated. People will unjustly lose their homes, and this community will not be what it could be. So I implore you, implement this policy. Please protect tenants' rights. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Micah Cox, and I've been renting in Douglas County for the past 10 years. The past 5 years at 66044. I'm asking that you put tenant right to counsel on the October 1st agenda and vote yes. I want to be real about what's at stake here. There were over 400 evictions filed in Douglas County last year. That's 400 families ripped from their homes. How many more do you plan to sit by and watch? How many more people do you plan to push into crisis while you delay action that can provide tangible supports and impacts for tenants in our community? The fear and powerlessness of eviction doesn't just end when someone hands over the keys. It wrecks health, jobs, kids, stabilities, people's basic sense of safety. And you know this, you know the data, you've heard the stories. This isn't, though, just about individual suffering. It's a systemic injustice that the county is allowing to continue. In eviction cases, landlords show up with attorneys 82% of the time, tenants only tenants only 3%. And the county has done nothing to fix that imbalance. That's not a fair fight, and you're choosing to let that happen. Evictions are not neutral legal proceedings. They are public health crises. Housing is a public health issue. These violent displacements fall hardest on our most vulnerable neighbors, Black families with children, nearly 3 times more likely to face eviction than white families. And let's be clear, you've agreed that this is needed. Commissioners Wiley, Kelly, and Reed voted to include right to counsel in the Housing and Homelessness Plan back on May 8th, 2024. That was 483 days ago. The data is here. The solution is here. The urgency is here. The only thing that's missing is your willingness to act. Meanwhile, Kansas Holistic Defenders, who I used to work for, Director of Operations, represents tenants in this very county, and nearly 75% to 80 of those cases are ruled in the tenant's favor. The proof is right there in front of you. Every day that you refuse to act, more people lose their homes who could have been protected. That is on the commission. Eviction is not just moving out. It is a violent tearing apart of someone's life, often with law enforcement and weapons involved. The trauma reverberates long after the case is closed, and every time you delay, you are complicit in that trauma. So I'll ask again, tenant right to counsel on the October 1st agenda and vote yes.
Hello, my name is Devin Middleton. I am a renter in Douglas County at 530 Eldridge Street, apartment E5, 66049. I want to speak towards protecting single-family heads of household that this commission has identified as a priority from eviction. A close friend of mine became a single mother very suddenly a little over a year and a half ago when the father of her child abandoned her and their 3-year-old. Already facing having to file for child support with no legal representation, she struggled to keep up with rent and many other bills, at one point receiving an eviction notice. Those first few months figuring things out on her own were truly horrible. She wasn't evicted, but I can only imagine how much worse it would have been if she also had to face eviction court without a lawyer at the same time. She was lucky to have a support system that was able to help her from receiving that eviction. But I know many in our community are not so lucky, and I'm asking you to put tenant right to counsel on the agenda October 1st and vote yes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hazlet Henderson, and I've been a homeowner in 66046 for the last 5 years. I'm here to ask that you please put tenant right to counsel on the October 1st agenda and vote in favor of it. I think naturally some folks are mischaracterizing tenant right to counsel as a kind of get out of jail free card. But tenant right to counsel is not a free pass to avoid paying rent. It's just a way to ensure more equal footing between people faced with the loss of their home and the people who are profiting from that housing. We know because people have told us many times already in public comment that landlords have representation on average 83% of the time, while tenants only do 4% of the time. And that then when tenants are represented, they are much more likely to win their cases. The numbers I've seen say anywhere from 8 to over 200 times more likely. I think that tells all of us that there are very often solutions in cases like these that don't involve forcing someone out of their home and putting an eviction on their record, which we all know makes securing new housing really difficult and homelessness becomes a much more real possibility. So tenant right to counsel isn't giving renters an unfair advantage. It's just what's due to them as neighbors who sometimes fall on hard times and need relief. We all know that wages have not kept up with housing prices, that healthcare and childcare are very expensive, and that there's a nationwide housing shortage affecting prices and availability. And all of that means that not paying your rent doesn't make you a bad person or mean that you should be stripped of your rights. It just means normal things have happened in your life, like illness or loss or car trouble or bad luck. And very often for reasons beyond your control, you don't have the economic security to get through it. Yeah, so I'm requesting that you take this step towards honoring the commitment you made in the A Place for Everyone plan and put this on the agenda on October 1st. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Genevieve. I'm a lifelong Lawrence resident, and I've been renting in Lawrence for the last 9 years, the last 4 at 3601 Clinton Parkway. As renters, an injustice against one of us is an injustice against all of us. Right now, members of our community are suffering. We've spoken with renters, myself included, who have been dealing with persistent mold, renters with broken stairs, heating, cooling, appliances, or plumbing for years, who have been asking their landlords to resolve these issues with no success. Even worse, many of us tenants who live under these hazardous conditions are not in the position to move somewhere better. We do not have the resources to hire a lawyer to sue for damages, and we can't raise complaints about violation of city code for the very real fear of retaliation. And that doesn't just mean fear of retaliation, that is the loss of their safety and shelter. As many speakers before me shared, right to counsel levels the playing field. So I also want to address mediation as the alternative for a second. A few months ago, we met with the Tenant Right to Counsel work group and received a presentation by local mediators. We asked if they're trained in tenant rights or if they inform tenants of potential issues that they could raise against the landlord, and they said no, because their role is about neutrality. Neutrality sounds like an admirable quality, but it does nothing to protect tenants facing illegal eviction or to assist a tenant with legitimate claims against a landlord. Some may raise the point, what about landlords? How will this affect them? To that I say, landlords profit off the business of renting out their properties. Like any other business, they are responsible for maintaining their property and providing a safe product. If they fail to do so, they should be ready to defend their actions in court, just as any business would if they sold a faulty product or provided an inadequate service. Right to counsel is not a punishment for landlords, it's how we hold them accountable. Squatters and noisy tenants were brought up. And I think oftentimes if you're dealing with those issues of squatters or rowdy tenants, that might be a sign that you as a landlord need to be checking in on your vacant properties or communicating better with your tenants. We don't have to jump straight to eviction. So with that in mind, I urge you to put right to counsel on the October 1st agenda and vote yes. Thank you.
Hey, what's up? My name's Landon McGee. I live here in Lawrence, right over on Indiana Street, and I'm a teacher in town. We've heard a lot of good testimony here tonight already about tenants' right to counsel, and I'm sure we're going to hear some more, and about what makes tenants' right to counsel uniquely effective as an intervention. The evidence that we already have that it's going to be effective right here in our own community. It's Occam's razor, right? It's the solution that seems to work the best. So with that in mind, I just want to say a couple of things on my own behalf. One is that I just really like Lawrence a lot. I really love living here. I've lived a lot of places in my life, and I feel like this is kind of the first place where I really feel that people here care about me and care about each other. Because of all the other places I've lived, I think my visceral level of response is to assume that people in leadership are going to treat the poor and the needy with cruelty, and sometimes that's like punitive cruelty, and sometimes it's kind of this Midwest nice disregard for people. What I want to believe about this place is that this town that I love and this commission might actually do this incredibly good thing and give our neighbors and ourselves real protection from the violence of eviction, and do it not because they're forced to, but because they actually value their neighbors. I mean, it's a really exciting possibility. And I also just want to say, my own experiences as a renter have been comparatively very positive. I feel like I've kind of won the lottery with the landlords that I've had. I've had small landlords. They've been personally kind to me and considerate. And I think that's actually kind of the point. I've won the lottery with my landlords, and frankly, I still have to worry about repairs that are taking way too long to be made. I still have to worry that my rent is going up as it did this year while my income is not going up. And ultimately, I don't have the ability to navigate the legal situation as it stands right now if something does go wrong. And so I'm part of Lawrence Tenants because I have neighbors who live in tents because they've been evicted. I have neighbors who live in real fear of eviction and the violence that often attends it. And I want to live in a place where we all collectively decide to stop the suffering of our neighbors. So I hope you'll consider this. I hope you'll put it on the agenda on October 1, and I hope that you'll vote yes. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kyle Rogenkamp. I am with the Ballard Center, 708 Elm Street. I'm here tonight to offer the perspective of a service provider. The trauma faced by families through eviction has a ripple effect in our community. I cannot tell you how many times I'm asked to come to court with a family. It'd be like if you had a heart attack and you asked me to come into the operating room and glove up. I'm not the right person. I don't have the expertise. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? I don't enter this arena often because I get very frustrated when things get to this level, because we tend to lose sight of things. We tend to start focusing on politics and who's responsible for what, city, county, state. At the end of the day, this is about people accessing their rights. As American citizens, Kansas citizens, Douglas County, Lawrence citizens. And no wonder they're repeating the statistics over and over again. Because guess what? When people have their damn rights, their life's better. Imagine that. Who would have thunk it? You have an opportunity to give people one thing, access to their rights. That's so hard to do, and you have it in the palm of your hands. I'm sick and tired of people asking me to go to court with them. It's not fair. These people are heroes over here. They don't get paid to do what they do. We've got to change this. And I shouldn't be the dude that people are asking to go to court. It's heartbreaking. So please, you have this power. You have it next month. And I hope that you choose to take responsibility for that. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Christina Haswood. I was born and raised here in Lawrence, Kansas, and I lived at my apartment for the past 4 years in zip code 66046. I want to share my story on why I feel passionate about this agenda item or potential agenda item of tenants' rights. Last year, as a former state legislator, as the legislative pay goes, we get paid when session is in. My paycheck biweekly was about $2,000. Once you're out of session, taking taxes and healthcare insurance, my paycheck out of legislative session turned to about $180. So being left out of session without stable jobs, because jobs will not hire you when you can only work half the year. I found myself coming back home and seeing printed that I had a warning for an eviction at my apartment and I needed to pay my rent within the next few days. It goes to show that a lot of us are one paycheck away from facing homelessness, being evicted from our living conditions. Luckily for me, I have a strong support system and was able to rely on that in my time of need and now found full-time employment. But this issue is near and dear to my heart. I think this of the tenants' rights to counsel, one of the things that stuck out to me was the legality of powers. And when a situation between tenant and landlord reaches the judicial level, that we want to give folks a fair and equitable choice in this time of very need and honestly very embarrassing time when you find yourself in these situations. But I urge you to put this on the agenda. I think it deserves a fair debate. And there's so many of our community members who have similar stories. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mo Rucker. I'm currently a student at KU, and I have been a Douglas County resident for 21 years now. I love this city so much, and I'm here because of that love. I am urging you to place the tenant right to counsel item on the agenda for a vote on October 1st and to vote yes. In an article from 2023, the National Low Income Housing Coalition stated that the presence of eviction filings were associated with higher rates of homelessness. Experiencing an eviction can disrupt a person's ability to work, care for children and family members, and stay healthy. When eviction does happen, only 3% of renters are able to get representation compared to 82% of landlords. Research shows that renters of color, disproportionately Black women with children, are at the highest risk of eviction. Additionally, LGBTQ+ individuals are more likely to be affected than straight individuals. Essentially, evictions target our most vulnerable populations. Without legal representation, vulnerability increases. Further, eviction creates a cycle of homelessness. Evictions stay on credit records and make it harder to get housing after an eviction. A large body of research supports the effectiveness of counseling in eviction hearings. Having legal counsel in eviction provides multiple primary and secondary benefits, including higher chance of avoiding eviction and getting evictions off a renter's record, respectively. A study conducted in Manhattan showed that renters with legal representation had a 77% decrease in judgments for eviction. Locally, data from Kansas Holistic Defender showed that with legal representation for tenants, nearly 75% of cases are decided in their favor, not only indicating the efficacy of legal counsel, but an indication that without legal counsel, it is much harder to receive a fair ruling. In Kansas City, the cost of tenant right to counsel program was less than 2% of the cost of their other housing stability programs combined. Additionally, the contracts made by the city to establish the program funded local educational and legal institutions to provide attorneys for the program. Tenant right to counsel programs are an effective means of discrimination protection, homelessness prevention, and equitable treatment because it balances the playing field. Because landlords are so overrepresented and tenants are underrepresented, providing a tenant right to counsel increases equitability in the courtroom and prevents unjust evictions. Further, the prevention of evictions and the protection of housing and prevention of homelessness. An eviction is a violent and traumatic event. Providing legal counsel is a compassionate, evidence-based, and fiscally responsible solution that upholds justice and protects the health of our community. I strongly urge you to put tenant right to counsel on the October 1st agenda and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room that would like to provide public comment? Okay.
Hello, bear with me. I'm speaking off the cuff a little bit, but good evening. My name is Jason Mayman. I've been renting in Douglas County for about a year or two at 66049. I'm also asking that you please put tenant right to counsel on the agenda for October 1st and vote yes, but I want to explain why. I'm in a unique position as someone who lives in Lawrence but works in Topeka to really think about the dynamic between those two cities, because I work regularly with people in Topeka who are also experiencing a lot of the same housing issues that many people have described tonight, whether that's mold, water leaks, random rent hikes, the list goes on and on. And I always hear about how much more progressive and forward-thinking Lawrence and Douglas County compared to Topeka and Shawnee County. And in a lot of cases, I'm proud to say that that's true. You know, we have an affordable housing trust fund that we've used for many years. We're implementing Built for Zero. All of these things are beautiful. We have this long history of civil rights and anti-slavery, et cetera, et cetera. But addressing housing as a public concern is not just about increasing the supply. It is about addressing the power imbalance between the landlords that own and operate that housing and the tenants that pay rent to live there. And come to my disappointment to realize that when it comes to that power imbalance, there's no difference between Lawrence and Douglas County and Topeka and Shawnee County. You're in the same position. And that's disappointing. So as essentially public custodians of a very rich legacy of being progressive, of being this beacon that the rest of Kansas looks towards, this is a very easy, very important opportunity to live up to that reputation by voting in favor of tenant right to counsel. If you don't, then we don't really deserve to talk about ourselves in this highlight compared to the rest of Kansas. So if we want to be able to continue to do that and be an example, then this is a good opportunity to do so. Thank you.
My name is Leah Burnson. I live in Lawrence, Kansas, 66049. I was born here. And I love this city ever since I've been back. But I'm speaking out today, asking you to please put the tenant's legal right to counsel on the agenda for the October 1st meeting, and please vote yes. That's because a lot of choices are made about renters, not because they're morally or legally correct, but because the judge or whoever makes this decision knows we can't do anything and can't advocate for ourselves. Last year, my apartment left my AC not working for 2 weeks when it was 104 in August. Freon was leaking out of the system, and we told them that, but they didn't come to fix this issue. We sued them in small claims court. Most people can't do that. Most people don't have the time. We took that time, and then the judge awarded us $200, which was the value of the hotel that we stayed at. I don't think we should have had to pay the whole value of our apartment, but what I'm saying is the deck was stacked against us there. Anybody who didn't speak English or know how to advocate for themselves, or who wasn't friends with somebody at Holistic Defenders wouldn't have known how to do that. Most people don't know how to do that. And if I had withheld part of my rent, I would be the one evicted. Well, meanwhile, my apartment was not a safe place to live in for 2 weeks. So anyway, pilots of legal counsel programs have been tested out in Kansas City and Manhattan, and they worked. They didn't give us a free pass to just not pay rent. They didn't work 100% of the time, but they did work to keep people in their homes. We already have a housing scarcity crisis and affordability crisis here in Lawrence. The average cost of an apartment went up by 6% last year. I haven't gotten a 6% raise, and I feel like most people in this room have not. And we have a homelessness crisis here in the city. And we know that statistically, most people who end up homeless are homeless because of being priced out. And so if we want to stave off the worst of this issue, make it better, keep people from experiencing the terrible mental and physical health crisis that results from being evicted, we should pass this. And we should follow Kansas City and Manhattan's example and make a better, safer city. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Adam Lang. I live at 1714 Vermont Street, 66044. So I wanted to start with saying I've had relationships with landlords in the past. I've had a lot of landlords. I went to KU. I've been living here for 8 years, and it's been very clear that treatment has been different towards different people. And I've had landlords actively just talk to me about other landlords in this or other tenants in the situations that they're in. So it is very clear that it is essentially a landlord can choose whether or not to act on whether or not to uphold what they need to uphold when housing people. And I also just wanted to say, I urge you to put tenant right to counsel on the agenda for October 1st. And the only thing I wanted to say as well was that we talk a lot about how many tenants don't uphold their part of the bargain. Like that has been said, like failure to pay rent, not acting in a way that is suitable for the housing that they are receiving, for the place that they are living in. But I wanted to talk about the consequences of these actions. The consequences of a tenant not meeting those standards is the landlord is losing money. The landlord is a property owner. They have a lot to fall back on, but the consequences of a landlord not upholding their part of that bargain of renting space is, as we've heard many times, a lack of security in housing and not receiving running water, human needs. It is a threat to essentially the human right to housing. And I think tenant right to counsel is a way to even the playing field on that, to even it on the side of human rights. So thank you for your time.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Gabby Sprague. I live at 1033 Kentucky Street here in Lawrence. I'm here to ask you to please put tenant right to counsel on the agenda for October 1st and vote yes. I have a few reasons for this. We talked about mediation tonight. I administered the pilot mediation program that Marielle spoke about earlier. More than 90% of landlords refuse to mediate. I believe that mediation has a place in the eviction prevention landscape, but that it's prior to the eviction filing. Tenant right to counsel would encourage landlords to mediate. Having a lawyer on the side of tenants does not change the law and does not prevent evictions. It only prevents illegal evictions, works towards people not having an eviction on their record, and it ensures that both landlords and tenants get everything that is owed them. If you oppose a tenant right to counsel, a logical conclusion might be that one supports illegal evictions. Regarding squatters, the laws in Kansas are pretty anti-squatter, and I'm sure that James Dunn's lawyer could figure out how to evict one. There have been other county departments, particularly sheriff and criminal services, that have received ample funding. I compared budgets from 2021 to 2025 for sheriff and criminal justice services, and the budget rose from 10 million to 20 million. Can we put some amount of money into things that are more preventative than responsive? I'm thinking the same about the FUSIS project currently being talked about at the City of Lawrence meetings. Hetty, the lawyer from Kansas Holistic Defenders, mentioned that 70% of people don't show up to their court hearing for evictions. But how much more likely would people be to show up for eviction court if they knew they had a lawyer? Personally, I've seen through my work and through my personal relationships, even just the fear of eviction is powerful and debilitating. I've seen evictions filed for as little as $70. I've seen evictions filed for late fees that were unfounded. I've seen evictions filed just because the property manager didn't like a person. We have the local data. We can see nationally that this is something that saves money. I truly don't understand the hesitancy. And let's be real, having worked for the county, I know that there are situations where things have been funded outside of the budget cycle. Let's fund this for 1 year and give an entire year for staff to find funding. The line item target is also moving. The ordinance language recognizes a need for a phase-in. Let's work together on this. A month is more than enough time for us to find consensus with county staff. I want to reiterate that we are more than willing to have that conversation with staff. We just wanted to make sure that tenants had everything that they would like to see in an ordinance before we had that conversation. Please do the right thing and put this on the agenda. Instruct staff to meet with Lawrence tenants and pass this ordinance on October 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Is there anybody else here in the room that wants to provide public comment before we look to Zoom attendees? Oh, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Carson Walker, and I've been renting in Douglas County at zip code 64044 since 2022, but I've been a fan of Lawrence for a lot longer. I am asking that you please put tenant right to counsel on the agenda October 1st and to vote yes. Like was mentioned by some speakers before me, all things considered, I've been exceedingly fortunate as a renter. And still, I feel no true sense of security with my current understanding of the support I would have as a tenant if my landlord were to ever to decide to file an eviction against me. I've never attended or spoken at a public comment before, but I am here today to voice my support for a cause that means a lot to me, to others here, and undoubtedly many more not in the room today. Thank you, and again, please put tenant right to counsel on the agenda October 1st and to vote yes.
Okay. Any other takers in the room? All right. Thank you, everybody. Sarah, has anybody raised their hand virtually online? Okay. All right, we will go ahead and close public comment. Thank you all for being here and for your comments. We appreciate them very much. As mentioned before, we do not have any regular agenda items tonight, so then we move on to appointments, and my notes indicate that we have one nomination that might be ready to move forward, and I'm looking to you, Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much. Yes. I sent forward a nomination to Sarah, which I believe she forwarded to all of you. I'm not sure if everyone has had a chance to take a look at it, but it is a 7th Judicial District nomination for Patricia Keister. Has everyone had a chance to review it?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to nominate Patricia Keister to the 7th Judicial District Nominating Committee.
I'd be happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes 5-0. Thank you for that. And that leaves, we've got one more seat on that nominating commission to fill. And I know that various commissioners have talked with those folks, so we'll see who else has interest in the near future. Any other appointments that commissioners have top of mind to discuss this evening?
Have a couple in the works, but none that are ready.
Okay, thank you. All right, that will conclude appointments for the evening, and we'll move on to Commissioner and Administrator Miscellaneous and have Sarah summarize her memo for us.
Thanks, commissioners. My memo's in the packet. There are some dates that have been added on there, including a drug court graduation. Just a reminder that we have the ribbon cutting ceremony next week for the Lone Star Lake ADA kayak launch. And then I wanted to let commissioners know, so I put some dates for the rest of the year on the calendar. So the commission previously decided to cancel October 29th because we've got some staff out of town and we have 5 meetings that month. Then we normally cancel the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And then this year, the Wednesdays in December, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve fall on Wednesdays. So unless the commission has other thoughts, we're going to cancel those 2 meetings. So that means our last commission meeting of the year will be December 17th. And then we will start again in 2026. Let me know if that's a problem.
Commissioners, any thoughts about the dates Sarah just shared? Any feedback? Okay, that sounds good. Anything else to share tonight? All right, thank you, Sarah. Commissioners, any miscellaneous items to discuss?
On behalf of the both of us, Commissioner Kelly and I, we did finally get a Zoom call or an online meeting with Congressman Mann that we'd been working on scheduling for many weeks. So we met with Congressman Mann, 35 minutes, and also his main policy staff person, and left kind of an open line of communication with her. We had kind of 2 topics in mind. One is how do we expect constituents, including ourselves, to best communicate with his office, because that's been a real struggle. And also, we brought several people with us onto that call to talk about some of the impacts of federal decisions on local people, on our constituents, our shared constituents with Congressman Mann. Jonathan Smith, who's the director of our Lawrence Douglas County Public Health Department, Kelly Wall with Women for Kansas, Brenda Wall with Family Promise, and of course, Commissioner Kelly and myself. So Commissioner Kelly, did you have anything you wanted to add about, we have some follow-up information to get them also?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thanks for your diligence in getting that meeting to happen, Commissioner Willie.
Now we work on the next one.
Yeah.
So that's all. Thank you.
I had a couple of comments from the friends and family of Haskell Indian Nation University. Full funding has been restored for this coming year, and 946 students have enrolled for the fall semester. The other issue I wanted to bring up is we had raised funds to send 4 students to Washington, D.C. to talk to Senator Moran and Representative Mann's office regarding the proposed legislation to take Haskell out of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The 4 students have decided to delay their trip to Washington until the National Guard is demobilized there. They have concerns that due to their appearance, they might be picked up or discriminated against in one way. So they're deferring that trip to a later day, but they still plan to go at some point.
I can fill in a little bit there also. There was another follow-up call with Senator Moran's staff person, Lucy Hallett, that's been kind of the main author of the Haskell Improvement Act, with students and other representatives of either the Haskell Friends or on campus there. And those conversations were lengthy and fruitful. There was also some conversations offline between Lucy and the students who'd been preparing to go on that trip, including the fact of why they were not making that trip at that time. So that was communicated to federal folks. And I think that's important that it was. So I think a lot of progress was made because of that engagement. That's another piece that we brought forward to Congressman Mann, that that engagement is helpful and that it's something that we expect out of our federal representatives there. So I think that was a positive to report. That was also a long time coming, getting that meeting set up. But once we did, that communication stayed open and was productive.
Thank you all for those updates. Anything else, commissioners? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned for this evening. See you next week.